called The Young Dudes by MsKingBean89, Chapter 82, 5th Year, Aftermath. No one was angry that they'd tried to protect Sirius. Mrs. Potter rose from her own bed when Mr. Potter returned from wherever he'd been, and they both agreed that Dumbledore was sure to arrive of his own accord, eventually, and anything he wanted to ask Sirius can wait until then. They salvaged the rest of the morning as best they could. Mr. Potter cheerfully offered to apparate all the presents up to Sirius's bedroom, but Sirius wouldn't have it. "My legs work fine," he insisted. "I want to come down and see the tree." So they all gathered themselves up and got dressed or changed, then reconvened half an hour later in the living room. Remus could now be staring at the patch of carpet where he'd seen Sirius's body fall less than 12 hours previous. The pain was sharp and startling. He had to look up at the current, conscious Sirius, bundled up in blankets with yet another mug of tea on the couch opposite him, just to feel normal again. The unwrapping of gifts still felt as joyful and natural as ever. A free-for-all, no order to it. They simply tore at wrapping paper until they were surrounded by it, strips of brightly coloured debris. It didn't matter what anyone had got, only the memory of having received something nice that awful morning. The Potters, of course, had plenty ready for both Sirius and Remus, and they promised Sirius even more yet to come. "We'll get you some nice pictures to brighten up your room," Mrs. Potter said. "Which Quidditch team do you support, sweetheart? Or perhaps one of those rock stars you kids like?" Sirius looked at her as if he had just received the most wonderful gift of his life. Perhaps he had. "Most of my stuff's at Hogwarts," he said. "It's just clothes at home." He looked a bit embarrassed, and Remus knew he was thinking about the rude posters he had permanently affixed to his bedroom walls. You could be sure he would not be doing that in his new room at the Potters. "Well, you can borrow some of James's things for a little while. Perhaps we'll go shopping in the new year." They sat down to a quiet Christmas lunch. Evidently, someone had disinvited the guests that had been planned for, which to Remus was a blessing. He was already worn thin from too much worry and not enough sleep. He did not need Darius Barebones thrown into the mix. He did think of the Pettigrews and wonder if Peter was worried or feeling left out. Gully was just about to set light to the Christmas pudding when the crack of operation sounded from outside the gate. Dumbledore. Sirius jumped and looked as if he wanted to get up from the table, but stayed put. Mr. Potter smiled at them all reassuringly and went to the door. Everyone listened intently. "Albus, Merry Christmas." "Fleamont, I take it Sirius has had his rest." "Yes, we were just about to have—" "I did request that you contact me as soon as he woke up." "Come in, Dumbledore. Join us for some pudding." Dumbledore stalked into the room. He was wearing sombre robes in deep brownish maroon like dried blood. He looked as though his night had been just as long as theirs. He was followed in by a stocky man who resembled a rather grizzled bulldog. He had a mass of greyish ginger hair and mean dark eyes which darted furtively around the room, as if scouting for trouble. "Albus, Alastor." Mrs. Potter got up, waving a wand. 2 more chairs appeared at the dinner table, as well as small plates, forks, napkins, and goblets. "Won't you join us for pudding?" "Not now, Effie," the stocky man, Alastor, grunted. "On duty." She gave him a look, not dissimilar to the look she had given James last night. He cleared his throat and sat down, quickly. Remus smirked. He had to find out exactly how she did that. Mothers had their own magic, it seemed. Dumbledore took his place with more decorum. His expression, as ever, was still as mill-pond and impossible to read. He was looking at Sirius. There it was. Remus felt it settle around him like an old friend. Rage. The desire to lunge across the table and shake Dumbledore senseless was so strong and so tangible that he found himself gripping the seat of the chair. The stranger, Alastor, turned to look at him. Remus felt himself being scanned by those dark, perceptive eyes. Oh. He knew Remus was a werewolf. Remus wasn't sure how he knew that Alastor knew, but he did. There was no question. Remus raised his chin and looked him in the eye. Alastor smiled slightly, as if this had confirmed something he had hoped for, then turned back to Dumbledore. "Sirius," the head teacher said quietly, "how are you?" "Fine," Sirius nodded. staring at the big dark pudding at the centre of the table. Gully snapped his fingers and it caught alight, the blue flame shimmering like a strange magical vapour. "I'd like to discuss last night's events with you," Dumbledore pressed. "I know it isn't pleasant, and you may wish to forget, but anything you tell me might be useful. Do you understand?" "Yes, fine," Sirius nodded, expression unchanged. The flame died, and Gully clicked his fingers again. The pudding divided neatly into 8 portions. It was rich and moist and cloying. The fruit and brandy stuck in their throats. They ate quietly for a moment before Mr. Potter felt he had to speak. "Not seeing your family today, Moody?" Alastor shook his head. "The job comes first. I'll be here as long as you need me." "We're very grateful," Mrs. Potter said, the kindness returning to her tone. "Alastor is an aura," Mr. Potter explained to the boys. Remus saw the light of recognition go on in James and Sirius's eyes and made a mental note to inquire later. If he had to guess, he assumed it meant some kind of wizard bodyguard. He thought of Charles Bronson in Death Wish and imagined Alastor Moody with a gun. Once pudding was eaten, they all returned to the living room. Sirius sat on the sofa with James and Remus on either side. They had sat in the same formation last Christmas when Dumbledore had arrived to announce the deaths of the Frasers. Remus had not thought of the Frasers at all since then. Not really. Only as part of the ever-darkening backdrop of a war he would prefer not to worry about. He had so much else to distract him. One of these distractions was sitting beside him right now. Their knees knocked together occasionally. Sirius wouldn't sit still. Remus tried not to flinch away, in case it was misread. "I hope this will not take long," Dumbledore smiled, pleasantly, as if this was nothing more than a friendly chat. "Sirius, we just need to know anything you can remember about the events which led to you arriving here at 11:15 last night." "Was that the time?" Sirius blinked. "I thought it was later." Dumbledore folded his hands in his lap and smiled. "In your own time, please." Sirius cleared his throat and glanced at James, who smiled at him in a brotherly way. Sirius looked at Dumbledore again. "I thought it would be okay. I never really got on with my family that well, since I'm in Gryffindor, you know. But I thought I'd be okay. We have a family dinner every year on Christmas Eve. The whole family." "Who was there?" Moody asked. He was taking notes, the quill over just at his chest level, scribbling quickly onto a piece of floating parchment. "All of the blacks." Sirius looked up at him. "And the Lestrangers, the Malfoys. Narcissa and her husband, anyway. Not Andromeda, obviously. The Goys arrived later, and the Nuts, the Crabs. Barty Crouch was visiting. He's friends with my brother." "Crouch?" Moody sounded surprised. Dumbledore smiled again, inclining his head. "That would be Bartimus Jr., of course." "Yeah," Sirius nodded. "Little git." "Quite the gathering, Albus?" Moody muttered. "Quiet. Please, Sirius, do go on." "So, yeah, it was all normal, really. Normal for us. Dinner, dancing, snobby stuff. He paused, looking ashamed. "They toasted to Voldemort. I didn't join in though, Professor, I swear. It was sort of jokey. I don't even know how serious they were. Dad was a bit drunk." Dumbledore's expression did not change. Sirius was looking at his feet now, and kept talking faster and faster. "I was supposed to talk to James at 8, so I tried to sort of sneak off, but my cousin, Bellatrix, she caught me, and cornered me in the library. She said I was nearly of age. It was time I started taking my brother's air more seriously. Leave my friends behind and grow up. I told her to. Well, I wasn't very nice. She called my parents. Reg came in too, and Crouch. I wasn't worried because, well, everyone knows Bella's a bit bonkers, so I thought they'd just tell her to stay out of it. But they didn't. They sided with her. Dad said... He said he wanted me to make him proud for once. I told him I was trying, but... Sirius paused for breath. The silence was agony, he continued. Anyway, they wanted me to swear allegiance to Voldemort. I thought they were joking. They were saying all this mad stuff about muggle-borns and blood traitors, and Bellatrix showed me her arm. She's got this tattoo." He looked up, as if realising this piece of information was useful. "It's the Dark Mark, sir. The skull and the snake. She said she's chosen a side. It was time for me to choose mine. I said no. I said it so many times." He closed his eyes, looking down again. "And they hurt you for it?" Dumbledore prompted. "They tried to persuade you?" "Yes." "Bellatrix did this?" "No." "Your mother? Your father?" Sirius's breathing was very shallow, but he kept going. He nodded. They took turns. Mrs. Potter stood up suddenly and left the room. Remus didn't blame her. His urge to hit something was reaching critical levels. "What, you managed to escape?" Dumbledore pushed gently. Sirius nodded again. "After a while, I must have stopped saying no because, well, it just hurt too much. I couldn't say anything. They must have needed me to agree, because they left me there, locked me in the library. There's a fireplace in there, and flue powder. I don't know, maybe they wanted me to go." He sounded very tired now. The story was told. There was an air of relief. "Thank you, Sirius," Dumbledore said, very softly. "This has been a great help. I won't disrupt your Christmas any further." He stood smoothly and glanced at Mr. Potter. "You're offered our Sirius until he comes of age to stands, I assume?" "As much as it did when he was 12, Mr. Potter said, straightening his back. He was a head shorter than Dumbledore, but at that moment, Flemmont Potter was the tallest man in the room. "Excellent," Dumbledore nodded. "I shall see you boys in January, then." "Wait!" Sirius jumped up. "Professor, what about my brother? Do you believe Regulus is in danger?" I don't think they'll hurt him. He's good at doing as he's told. He only wants to please our parents. But they'll make him join Voldemort. He'll get marked. He's 16 next year, and... Does Regulus want to leave?" No, not like I did." "Then we cannot force him. He is in no immediate danger. I'm sorry, Sirius." Sirius hung his head, sat back down. Dumbledore left, quietly, shaking Mr. Potter's hand. Moody left too, returning to his station outside the Potter's front gate. Remus watched him through the window. "What a very strange man." "Mr. Potter," Sirius said, unnaturally polite. "Please may I borrow some parchment? I'd like to write Andromeda." "Of course, my boy," Mr. Potter nodded. He led Sirius and James into his study. Remus stayed put, feeling that he wasn't really needed just now. The Potters were there to support Sirius. They could do whatever was necessary. Remus, was only really useful when Sirius needed some kind of sense slapped into him. Verbally, of course. When a prank needed ironing out. And there would be plenty of time for those things, once this particular storm had passed. Again, Remus wished he could speak to Grant. There was definitely a phone box in town, if he wanted to. Remus could call St. Edmund's. The matron would probably hand the phone over. She wasn't a jailer. But Moody was. Remus didn't much like the idea of explaining why he fancied a trip to the village on Christmas Day. He closed his eyes and tried to imagine what Grant might say. "Bloody hell," probably. They went to bed early that night. There was nothing else to do. James didn't even suggest flying practice. They played a few half-hearted games of chess, but everyone kept yawning so much that in the end it was ridiculous to try and stay up. They piled into James's bed, even Remus. He tried to manoeuvre it so that James ended up in the middle, but Sirius crawled over them and plonked himself down between his two friends. "Budge up, Mooney," he grinned, with a sharp elbow to the ribs. Remus kept as close to the edge as possible. Touching Sirius underneath the covers, even with his toe, was utterly unthinkable. "This is weird," he thought. "Mates don't share a bed. Even best mates. This is so weird." He tried to sleep. James began to snore, and Sirius's breathing levelled out. Remus relaxed. He could definitely imagine what Grant would say to this. "I knew you boarding school lads were all poofs." Remus couldn't help chuckling slightly under his breath. Sirius rolled over to face him, eyes open, wide awake. "What are you giggling at, Mooney?" Nothing, Remus whispered back, embarrassed. Just not used to sharing a bed. Yeah, James's snoring is pretty bad. And it's weird, right? Remus wanted to say. Don't you think we're weird? Was all he said. I can't sleep, Sirius sighed. I could get James's mum. She might have some more potion. Don't want any more potion. Sirius sounded overtired and sulky, like a child. Remus was glad. That made him easier to deal with. Well, shut your eyes then, he instructed. I keep thinking about it. Oh, sorry. No, not like that. I just mean, it's weird. But while they were doing it, before I sort of stopped thinking, I was thinking about you. Me? Yeah, I was thinking. At least I know how Moony feels. When we were researching all that stuff to help you on the full moon, there was a description in one of the records, written by a witch who had lycanthropy. She said the pain of transformation was similar to that of the Cruciatus curse. Oh, I never heard that. I don't think it can be. I think Cruciatus must be much worse. Maybe, Sirius agreed, but it helped a bit. I thought, if Moony could do it, so can I. Remus didn't have a proper response. Go to sleep, Sirius. All right, night, night. He waited for Sirius to fall asleep, properly this time, then carefully got up and went back to his own bed.